Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to be showing you a replay. We're going to be helping Shrewms be a better player. Yeah! So anyways, this is going to be Shrewms losing a game. He sent this to me. He said, can you please tell me what I did wrong? And let's review this. I've already gone through the replay once, so we're going to skip through a lot of stuff. His opening's really good. More or less. It's as good as could be. You know, for silver, he's looked at basic build orders, he understands how to time things out, you know, building workers more or less constantly, putting your buildings down at the right time, really not a big issue with that, even sending a scout out, you know, so a lot of little things, your gas. Now, the only thing, yeah, hiding the scout there, maybe for a later scout, we'll get scouted, but thankfully somehow he managed to escape, but I wouldn't hide it back there again, just because that's where they're looking. Maybe try hiding it back here this time. Anyways, yep, pretty decent. Your timings are pretty decent. You know, all this basic beginning stuff you've got down pretty good. You know, you're really good at being able to build up your economy early on, be able to get the right buildings, not build excessive stuff, all the good stuff that bronze players have a lot of trouble with. Now, you're getting scouted a little bit. I wouldn't really worry about chasing the scout around. That's just wasted mining time. I would, you know, only if he disappears into the fog of war and you're not sure that if he's building a bunker, then I would worry about it. But if you see him just running around your base, don't really worry about chasing him. And the other thing too is this scout here got taken out. I meant to mention this, but wasn't paying attention. When the Marine came down here to attack it, it ran to go escape. What you should have done is, if you were actually controlling it at that time, is move it down here and try and scout the rest of the base before it dies rather than running there. Now, this gas tells you that they're probably not going to do a really fast expansion, and they're probably going to be putting out some marauders and, you know, a somewhat aggressive build like a 3 racks or something like that. Or, you know, in the higher levels, it can definitely, once you get into gold and platinum, it can definitely mean things like Banshee harass and a few other openings. So knowing that gas is, if there's no gas, you know that pretty much they're probably going to expand soon, or they're just going all Marines if they don't get that gas by about 14-15 supply. Of course, we are seeing 3 racks, and we're seeing that now you're not doing any more scouting. Your warp gate technology was down. Your chrono boost could be a little bit better, not the end of the world. Now, the only thing I'd like to point out as well is I'm not a big fan of the way you've done your 3-gate robo build. I prefer to get my second gas earlier, get my robotics bay before my gateways. That is my preference, but, you know, so I would consider that. I would definitely look into that. I'm not a big fan of this order. And the other thing too is I would like to see you getting a sentry now, not another stalker, but you know, it's hard because you want to throw down that robo bay. But that's one of the, you know, that makes it, that's why you get your gas earlier. Is you get this gas, the second gas earlier, and then that really helps you be able to get that robo bay down sooner, as well as getting a sentry right after that stalker. A sentry can be very, very important early games against Terrans. I highly suggest you get a little bit better with sentries and force field micro, because Protoss pretty much has to rely on force fields or else they lose. Like, it's just one of those things. And supply blocking yourself here, obviously, that needs to be worked on, but that's something that goes without saying. But yeah, definitely get sentries earlier. Get at least 1 sentry earlier, and then maybe another sentry in a little bit. You really need sentries. I do like the fact that you're keeping your probe here to see when the army's incoming. I would actually move it right here, though. That way you get vision, because there's a smoke cloud you have to watch out for. And, you know, also scooting it over here to see if they're expanding. That's another good thing. And you might have seen his army coming in too. And, well, yeah. Stalkers? Ugh. You know, gotta be really careful with a lot of stalkers against Marines. You know. But I prefer, you know, it's hard to say. I'm not sure if you were able to see how much there was Marines versus Marauders, but if you were able to look at that and see, oh my god, it's 80% Marines, this is when you start putting out Zealots. You don't get Immortals. Well, you can get one more because they're still cool, but definitely you'll need some sentries and a lot more Zealots when you're seeing a lot of Marines. A lot more. And of course, your probe temporarily denying that. That was funny. But the thing I don't like that you're going to do now is you saw him drop his expansion, he transferred to it, he's got a lot of economy already, and well, you just go and expand. This is a reactionary expand, it's a little bit late. You know, it's hard. You do something like this, and you're behind already, and you're staying behind. So, you know, you got to be really careful in a situation like this. Make sure that you're not going to lose the game because you got to do something to catch up. Because right now you're just staying behind him. You expanded after him. He's already mining all of these extra resources, and so either as soon as that expansion goes down, you can either look into pushing out if his army's not too scary, which, well, you'd probably get slaughtered by that because it's all Marines and you have the wrong composition, but you know, so either you can look at using that extra 400 resources to quickly warp in 4 more zealots, go for an attack, hope you can break him, but then you lose if you can't. And then, of course, this one, you're going to have to play a little defensively now. You know you're a little behind. You're going to have to find a way to catch up or just have a better army in the future. I really would have liked to have seen more zealots, though. And the other thing, too, you're playing against a Terran player. By 10 minutes, they can easily have ghosts out. And ghosts, if they EMP, this entire ball will lose 100 HP. Or, wow, you know, 50 for the zealot. EMP only does 100 damage max. But, yeah, but your mortal loses their everything will lose all of their shields. Everything. So whenever you're playing against a Terran player, you want to spread these units out. Make sure that they can't get EMP'd. It also helps with a little bit of concave. And of course, usually you want your mortals and zealots in the front, but I wouldn't worry about that as much as just spreading your units out. Really don't let them clump up like that. Okay. And of course, you could be doing a little bit of something to see his unit composition, maybe sending in a suicidal probe or something, because it's very, very valuable to know the unit composition, to know what units you need to have, make sure you're not having the wrong things. And of course, once again, this Colossi, really, really, really bad. Do not let your Colossi just sit here in front of your army. Make sure your Colossi are always behind your army if they're just sitting around. Like, don't let them sit around in places they can get sniped, unless you know you can immediately move them as soon as you see anything on your mini-map, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, right here, if you were, I still want you to get more sentries. If you had found out that he had 90% Marines, start warping zealots. And also, the other thing too was, I talk about always building workers. Well, okay, so you've been building a lot of extra workers, but they should be transferring. This is almost finished right now, so you should be transferring those workers very soon, if not right now. And you don't transfer them, so that's definitely something you got to think about too, is that transfer. But the big thing we're going to find out, the big thing was just your army positioning and your army composition was mostly what lost you the game. And against Terran, it really comes down to that. Like, Terran, it's just their army. If you just have Gateway go face first into Marine Marauder, you will lose every single game. End of story. So there's no way around that. You really have to be able to use some micro. You really have to be able to have better unit positioning, better unit composition. And so, you know, you need those sentries. You need to be able to force field. And the other thing here, we see the stim coming down right now. Here's the stim. And as soon as you see that that's stimmed, your army should run away and try not to take as much damage as possible while that stim wears off. But the thing is, you need sentries to run away. So if you had a couple sentries, you could go force field, force field, force field, and then just back off, run away, and then let that stim sort of start to wear off, because you really don't want to let them fight you with that stim fully engaged, and plus it does health damage. So if you can run away after a stim while taking minimal losses, all of their units took damage, all these medevacs will have to waste their energy trying to heal them for nothing. And of course, we will see now that this Colossi here will get absolutely sniped. I said always keep them in the back. Absolutely no force fields coming down. That Guardian Shield was a bit too late. I'm not going to kill you for that, but the force fields was the big thing. Having no zealots, you know, so, and, you know, didn't transfer workers still. So little things like that, you know, definitely there's a little bit of an issue you have. You really good early game. You know, not perfect, but it's pretty good. Your early game is pretty good. You were able to, in general, do a proper build order, be able to put things out at good timing. The only thing I would say is, you know, the 3-gate robo is usually an aggressive build, not a passive build against Terran. That's usually how you win, by being aggressive with it. If you sit back, a lot of times they can steamroll you over. You know, you want to, but of course in the Silver League it's not as important because they're probably not fast expanding and doing all the fancy stuff, so really you can get away with it being a defensive build. And, you know, army composition, but oh, okay, sorry, I was saying that wrong. Okay, so we talked, you know, your early game was pretty good, but your mid game was extremely, extremely weak. You didn't have a good sense of, you know, when should I expand, how the whole expansion thing works. Like, well, he's way ahead of you now because of that. You weren't scouting for, you didn't know his army composition, so you weren't putting out zealots to deal with the Marines, because, you know, the zealots are a really, really good way to deal with the Marines, partially because they're not that expensive, and they also do a lot of damage once they get in close, and they force the units to dance around because there weren't many Marauders. And of course, just general micro unit management, all those things, they all add up. So there you go. That's all I can really say. You know, your early game is pretty decent. Could work a tiny bit on it, but your early game's pretty good. Your mid game, though, definitely having some issues with the macro. Understanding, you know, when do I expand, when don't I? When do I build units, when don't I? And the unit composition, though, that whole just battle was the hard part to watch. And I still have a lot of problems with Terran. Terran is a race where, well, they can basically 1A move and press T and raffle stomp you if you don't do 500 APM for that blistering battle. So, either you could quit Protoss or you could, you know, learn how to micro. So there you go, Shrewms. Hopefully that helps you, and have a lot of fun playing.